Why is introducing myself so difficult? That's my question of the day. I was thinking, oh, I need to come on to YouTube and reintroduce myself because it's been a long time. And even though I have over 600 videos here, I'm relaunching my YouTube channel. And I thought, oh, why don't I come on and do one of those formal introductions? And I realized it brought up a ton of stuff in me. And I think that the reason why it's hard for me is because I feel like whenever I try to introduce myself, it's just too, it just can't ever really capture the expansiveness of me or of you. This isn't just a me thing, this is an us thing. And I remember this time. Okay, well, let me just first say this. My name is Deb Blum, and I do have this lovely YouTube channel. And it's kind of gone through many iterations, but at the end of the day, what I really care about is you being you, me being me, and us getting rid of all the layers of stuff that interfere with us being able to be our authentic self. And that word authentic, ugh, it's such a cliche word. What does it really mean? What does it really mean? Well, it really means getting to the truth of who you are. And I know for me, it's taken a long time for me to get there, and I continue to get there. This isn't a one and done. This is a journey. It took me 40 years to put on all of the masks and the armor and guarding my heart and doing all the things I do and learning how to be the person who's acceptable in the world. And so naturally, it's going to take me decades to peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, to keep finding more and more of who I am at the core. You got this little teeny core, that's who you are. Actually, it's massive, but this core of who you are, and then all these layers around you that keep you hidden. And they've been keeping me hidden too. So, anyway, that's a little bit about me, but I'll tell you more about me because I do want you to know that I do have an online group training program that's amazing. And I want to talk more about my background and who I am. But you know what, though? I'm not going to do it in one video. I'm not. You're just going to get to know me as you learn more about me in these videos. And I will continue to tell you more and more, including in this video. Okay. So I remember this time that I was working at Arthur Andersen. Have you heard of Arthur Andersen? You've probably heard of companies like Price Waterhouse and Ernst and Young. They were big accounting firms. In fact, they used to be called, I think it was the Big Six. It was back in the 90s when I was working there. And I remember that I had to introduce myself. And I mean, it was as simple as saying my name and probably just stating some basic thing about me. We were sitting around at a big corporate table. And it's, by the way, I had already worked in many companies. I was young, but I had certainly had experience talking about myself to other people. And I was legitimately sweating and nervous. All people were saying was, hi, my name is such and such, and I maybe live in such and such town or something. I'm telling you, I messed it up. I actually didn't know my own name. I was shaking. I was so red in my face. I was so nervous. And I always wondered why. And I always thought it was because it was just me being put on the spot. And that's part of it. But I think it's because at some level, I just didn't know who I was. And even though at the time I was in my 20s and I was like, I'm this consultant and I had all these identities and everything that made up who I was, but did I really know who I was? And now the reason why it bothers me to do it is because I know myself so much better and I know that I can never represent myself in a 30-second blurb about who I am. And I want you to know that about yourself too, if you don't already know that. If you don't already know that you are so expansive and so complex and you contain multitudes. We all contain multitudes, and to try to put ourselves in a little teeny tiny box. And so I learned something else too, and that I want to really work on, which is that I want to take up the space that I need to talk about the important things that I want to talk about, whether that be talking about me or the trials and tribulations of being a woman who is over 40 in the second half of her life, or all of the emotional elements of really reclaiming ourselves, or even if I'm talking about brain longevity and statins or whatever we decide to talk about on this channel. I want to allow it to have some space so that we're not just trying to teach and talk sound bites. Everyone's out there saying everyone wants short videos. They don't have attention span. They can't sit there and listen to the nuances. And I'm like, well, then I'm not the person for you. I'm not. I'm just not. I'm the person who wants to explore all of the angles and look at life from different perspectives. And I'm the person who's going to be more of the one that goes on a journey about some kind of topic rather than trying to give you the 3 points. 1, 2, 3, this is what it's going to do. I don't even think that's in touch with reality. I think that reality is that most matters of the heart and matters of being a human have some level of complexity and depth, and that we are all longing for people to be talking about the truth of what it's like to be a human. Now, what I do want to tell you about me is that this today me is very different than prior me. Okay. Really different. I was very disconnected from my emotions. I did not have a real sense of knowing what I felt. I pretty much had happiness, which I don't even know if it was really happiness, but smile. I always had a smile on my face. So I like happy, irritated, frustrated, maybe angry. I was definitely a typical Gen Xer from the standpoint of I suppressed my emotions so freaking far down that I didn't even know I had them. And I walked around pretty numb, but I didn't even know I was numb. It's like I had to get to a certain point in my own personal growth and healing to even know that I was numb. And numb, by the way, there is a video out here that I will link to that's gotten over 50,000 views because I don't think I'm alone in feeling numb. Numb's a yucky feeling. Like if you get Novocaine, they make the spot numb. But the truth is, it's never really painless, right? It actually kind of has a little weird feeling to it. And if you have numbness in your fingers, like because you were out in the cold or something, it actually sometimes hurts a little, right? It's not really fully numb. Well, same with when it's numb in your heart. It's kind of this, ugh. And so I was very guarded. My heart was shut down. I didn't even know I had a heart. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I remember that I got these two messages that were kind of these odd downloads. And I'm hesitant to talk to you about it because it feels so weird and woo-woo. But I'm telling you, I was probably about 39, maybe 40 years old, and I was in a pretty big midlife crisis, total dark night of the soul kind of stuff. Who the heck am I? And I got these two messages that just popped into my head. And why do I know, or how do I know that they were not things that I was thinking about or just an idea? Was because I had no idea what they meant. And I'm going to tell you both of them, but I'm only going to talk about one in any depth right now because we have plenty of time to do that. See, spaciousness. I don't need to tell you everything all in one video. You don't want that. You want me to take a little time and space so that you can really marinate in it and take it in. So, one of them was you need to journey from your head to your heart. Let's just take that in. You need to journey from your head to your heart. The second one was you need to realize, it was like someone was talking to me, Deb, you need to realize that you are loved for who you are, not what you do. These have been guiding principles for me for my entire journey. I think that they are so necessary for most women. And I want to say that the part where it was about the journey from your head to your heart, I had really genuinely no idea what that meant. And I Googled it. And you have to understand, this was at a time unlike now. This was back when there wasn't a lot of information on the internet about this. And right now, you could Google that and you would get a lot of information. I had one book on Amazon and it was called The Journey from, I think it was called The Journey from Your Head to Your Heart. Sometime I'll talk about it. But it was relatively religious. I wasn't opposed, but that wasn't really what I was looking for. And it was really helpful for me because it helped me to see that, wow, I am always up in my head. I do always think about everything. I am cut off from my body and my heart. I was like a walking head and I didn't know anything different. It's the only thing I knew. And then I've had to, over the years, and I'm talking years, I'm talking decades, years, decades, yeah, been like thawing out my body that was so just like cut off and journeying to my heart. There is a guy who has said some quote, I'll see if I can find it, that the journey from your head to your heart is the longest one you'll ever take, but it is also the most rewarding and amazing one that we'll ever take. And I am deeply grateful for the incremental steps I've made and continue to make toward my heart to softening, to thawing. Now, I was super compassionate to other people, but I had no warmth or compassion toward myself whatsoever. I had no idea that there was this whole other experience of me. I was living a half lived life because I was living a head lived life, not a heart lived life. And frankly, I was living a relatively masculine dominated life as well. And I was cut off from my feminine. And we will talk a lot more about what that means, but I'm not talking about I was a man, even though I was a tomboy. I'm talking about the energies in us. I was thinking and doing and linear and task oriented and driven, kind of type A. I was working in the corporate environment. I was a go-getter in all the ways. And being cut off from my heart wasn't a problem for me for a long time. I was pretty happy to not feel those messy feelings. I was pretty happy to control myself and be reserved and have an image I presented to the world. But then when I realized that there was so much more to me that I had not tapped into, that's the magic. And I want all of you, anyone who's listening to this, yes, it is true that my program is for women, but my YouTube channel can be for anyone. And if you are desiring to know yourself in your multitudes, in your contrasts, the light and the dark, the feminine, the masculine, the head and the heart, I'm not talking about that there's anything wrong with being in your head. I just want you to expand into all of who you are because the head is awesome, but the body and the heart is like, something totally different, something so much more. And I don't want you to live a half-lived life. I was living this crappy, well, no, that's actually not true. See, here is the thing. I was living a freaking amazing life. I mean, from the outside in, you would have been like, Deb, you have a dream life in so many ways. Married to a doctor, two beautiful, amazing boys, living in a house in Marin County in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. The weather was great. I had great friends. I volunteered at the schools. I left my corporate job to stay at home. And then I was building a business. Oh my God. Like there were so many things about my life that you would have been like, oh, I mean, come on. My life was amazing. But my interior life was, I don't know, was it a desert? It was frozen. It was inaccessible to me. It was like nothing was there. So when I was going through my midlife crisis, I did not think this was a good thing. When I was like, ooh, what's going on here? And my life was turned completely upside down. I did not think that was good. But in retrospect, I see that it was a blessing and that it was like Brene Brown will say it's a midlife breakthrough. I think a midlife awakening because it's when I awakened to all of who I am. I awakened to me and a sensory, emotional fullness of who I am. And yeah, and so is that a thing that I completed? Actually, no. I do keep on finding new aspects of myself and thawing out new parts of myself all the time. And it's been a fun and turbulent and juicy ride. And I know that for me, when I first started on this journey, it was hard to open up to it. I had a lot of resistance to it. And wherever you are listening to this, whether you're a person who is like, ooh, it kind of feels like me right now, or whether you're like, yeah, I've been on that journey, I do really believe that this channel and my work is able to meet you where you are. I feel like there's a there's a way that everything I'm talking about speaks to your soul and to the depths of who you are. And so come along the ride with me. Come along the ride and see if we can really open some places up inside of you so that you can live your second half of your life from that place of your own depth, from the truth of who you are. One of the biggest regrets of the dying people on their deathbed is that they didn't live their lives true to themselves and they didn't let themselves be happy. Those are two of many, but there are almost always these interpersonal, these like the who we be kind of parts of life. And I want for you to have a second half of your life that really truly feels like you're honoring of yourself, that you reclaim all the parts of you that you've lost along the way, and that you're available to have your heart open and be touched by life, to touch others and to be touched by them, to experience life in its fullness. As we get older, if there's one thing that we will absolutely have to experience, it is loss. So much loss in the second half of our lives. You know, it's like the first half of our lives is so filled with new creations, with birthing. Well, the second half, a lot of it is a letting go of things that no longer serve us, which is a loss. It's a good loss, but it's a loss. And then loss of things that we've identified with that will feel like they're hard to let go of. Loss of people, loss of things that we can do. And so coming into a relationship with more of ourselves than who we have identified with up until now will make the second half of our lives so much richer, so much more rewarding, so much more filled with fulfillment and happiness. And I think really, truly, even health. I really genuinely believe at the core of everything that we are oftentimes trying to expand our lifespan, be healthier, and be strong. And we're doing a lot of things on the physical level, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do it too. Go into the gym and trying to eat healthy and learning how to make sure that our bones are healthy and all those things. But I really believe at the core of everything, our ultimate happiness resides in how we feel inside. And that requires us to do emotional healing, to go back and find all of the parts of ourselves that got wounded and hurt and reparent those parts. Like, take those parts and be like, yeah, I didn't get those emotional needs met. Yeah, like I didn't experience that level of connection and being held and taken care of emotionally. And so we get to do that for ourselves now. We get to say, I am not going to live my whole life feeling emotionally neglected and emotionally unfulfilled. And we're often hoping someone can do this for us and with us. But what I want you to know is that within you is the capacity to provide to yourself everything you most needed and wanted as a child and come into the emotionally mature and spiritually whole woman that you are meant to be. And that, my friends, is the core component to living the second half of our lives in a way that feels absolutely amazing, where the best years are not behind you. And in fact, they are here in this moment, right here. So that's the beginning of me telling you a little bit about me. And yeah, I can absolutely tell you about my credentials and I can tell you about why I do what I do, and I will, and what I actually do. I love that. I can't wait. One of the things I say, or I've said, is that I think emotional healing is more important than biohacking. We're all trying to find that magic bullet that's going to make sure that we're healthy and that we don't get the things that our parents had and we don't age the way our parents aged. And I think at the core of poor aging is the fact that we haven't done emotional healing. So all of the unhealed parts inside of us that are causing such a stress on our bodies, the dysregulation of our nervous systems, the anxiety and the depression, and all of these feelings that we're experiencing that we are not knowing how to navigate. If we're going to put more time and money and energy into how to live the best second half of our lives, I think that leaving out emotional healing is a pretty big mistake. Okay, everyone. Thanks for letting me introduce myself in a very different way than most people do. And I'm so glad you're here. And by the way, if you have any questions, thoughts, things you'd like me to talk about, I will always invite you to comment below. I'll do the best I can to respond. And at a minimum, what you can count on is at least I'll capture your ideas in my journal of many ideas of things I want to talk about here. And hopefully someday you'll get your questions answered. All right. Take care.